Contrary to the advice in so many self-help books, successful people don't build and maintain large networks. Rather, our research shows that they cultivate more efficient networks that enable them to collaborate in ways that generate innovation and scale in their work. This really bears repeating. The successful people I studied were not collaborating less. Instead, they were more intentional and efficient in their collaborations and used that freed up time to cultivate more productive networks. Let's focus first on how they attained these efficiencies. Across a series of studies, I used network analytics to identify those people that were providing greatest impact in their organization's networks and were taking the least amount of time. Typically, they were about a day a week more efficient than their peers while also generating greater value for their organizations. So I called these people up, 100 women and 100 men, to learn how they were pulling this off. And what I discovered surprised me. I was absolutely sure that the source of collaboration overload was out of our control. It was emails, meetings, time zones, demanding clients, and flaky colleagues. And to be sure, there was an element of this. But I also came out the other end of these interviews convinced that 50% or more of the problem is us and our tendencies to jump into collaborations based on how we think we need to show up for others. And this all happens in a nanosecond. Have you ever been asked to do or participate in something and know deeply with every fiber of your being that you should not engage? But then in the very next second, you generate 5 reasons why you have to go do this thing, the one you knew just a moment ago you shouldn't go do. You jump in and find yourself overwhelmed 6, 12, or 18 weeks later and often don't even remember that you started it all to begin with. I learned that the first thing my efficient collaborators did was become highly attuned to their own triggers to jump in when they shouldn't. For some, this meant recognizing when a desire to help led to taking on too much work and also becoming the path of least resistance for colleagues with problems. For others, it was seeing when a desire for status led them to jump into interactions or position themselves more centrally in work than they should. For still others, it was fear of what colleagues thought or FOMO. In fact, one of my favorite interviewees described in depth the life-changing experience of turning FOMO, fear of missing out, into JOMO, the joy of missing out. For me, and many others, it's need for accomplishment. If I see 5 minutes of space, I'm sure to ignore the hour of collaborative time required to attain the accomplishment, jump in and wonder why I'm running short on time at the end of the day. Second, I found that the more efficient collaborators were better at putting structure into their world. They would block reflective time, strategically calendar every week with a 1 to 2 week and 3-month time horizon in mind, and they managed role interdependencies ahead of asks more proactively. I uncovered 8 ways these people structure their worlds and, on the margin, buffer from unproductive collaborations. And third, I learned that my successful people were more efficient in the interactions themselves. They managed email, ran meetings, created norms on collaborative practices in their teams, and took myriad other steps to promote the efficiency in collaborations on a day-to-day basis. The key was that they fought for these efficiencies on the margin. For example, rather than saying, I can't control the time sink of all email, they would say, my team generates 60% or more of the time I and they spend on email. How do we take actions here that make all of our lives better? The most important thing I learned from my efficient collaborators is that winning does not come from one elegant solution, no matter how desperately we all just want one thing to focus on. Rather, it comes from being dogmatically persistent on 3 or 4 practices that can have the greatest impact for you. In other words, this challenge is better seen as a brawl than a ballet. But I can't think of a more worthy challenge to rise to today. In all of my interactions with organizations, I still haven't found a chief collaborative overload officer who is looking out for you. I'm sure the tools will evolve to help us all manage better in this networked economy, just like they did when Deming and Duran were helping usher in the process revolution. But for now, the burden rests largely on us. Now let's look at what successful people do with this freed up time that makes a difference in their performance at work.